Welcome to Living from the Heart. I am your host, Tina Thrussell, light dancer, co-founder of Best You Can Be and messenger of the Shin, the way of the heart. Before I introduce today's guest, I'd like to draw your attention to the little crawler at the bottom of the screen that invites you to receive a complimentary subscription of Heart and Mind Matters. My husband, business partner, life partner, soulmate, Neil Thrussell, and I produce this easing every other Tuesday morning, offering you an inspirational article, a YouTube video, and a quote of the week to give you a little uplift and inspiration in your week. So you can receive that at bestyoucanbe.ca. So my guest today, I actually first met vicariously through my husband. Neil met Joel Young at an evolutionary business council event, I believe it was, and learned about Joel's NPA process and came home very excited about this process and the man himself that brought this to the world. And he talked about it so much, I felt like I knew Joel quite personally myself. It wasn't until earlier this year, thanks to the wonderful magic of technology, that Joel and I have been connecting online and getting to know one another even better. And I understand completely why Neil loves this beautiful man, Joel Young. I'd like to introduce you now to Joel Young, the creator of this wonderful NPA process. Welcome to the show, Joel.
Woo! It worked. Thank you, Tina. Lovely to be here.
It worked. And so did the actual NPA process that we did just before coming live onto the show, because my intent was to have some fun and feel deeply connected. And I feel the energy of that. I feel that energy of this is going to be fun. And I feel this connection to everyone out there who's watching this show, besides the connection that I feel with you. It's just a delicious feeling. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. It's often not known. I don't know, people may not have heard of NPA, but it's a very simple 6-line spoken word process, which you can let go of the yucky stuff, or what we did before here, which is let in the yummy stuff. And we were chatting and saying, I mean, there's loads of people that have come back to me and so they use it before they speaking, like a little prayer before going into something, because it really helps you tune into and include yourself in that vibration that you'd like to experience when it's used that way round. So it's a wonderful thing. And we had a bit of time. It was like, well, let's do some NPA. And there we go. And you chose fun and deep connection. And here we are. So it's great.
It is great. It is great. And fun and deep connection are, in a way, really connected with trust, in my opinion. And I had promised people that we would talk about how trust plays a role in living with purpose and passion. And deep connection and trust certainly are very connected. And I think fun is too. If you're not willing to approach life with this fun, playful kind of attitude, it's hard to be in that relaxed state that we need for trust. At least that's my thinking.
I think definitely it's a massive asset if you can have some fun. And I think deep connection comes on the back of having an environment of trust, whether that's internal or external. Because I think, well, for me, there's a very clear distinction, because they're often confused, trust and faith, but they're actually quite different things. So faith is like, take a leap of faith. You've got no idea what you're leaping into. It really is a blind act of I'm willing to just sort of dive into whatever action, statement, career, lifestyle, whatever it is. It's an act of faith where you really, there's no evidence at all. And I think trust is something which is more the human level of that, which is trust is built with evidence over time. So as you gain experience in something, you begin to trust it with some validity. So it's kind of an interesting definition. So I kind of break it down in that way. And then so the deep connection, I mean, there's an innate deep connection that we have anyway, but in terms of I'm very much about the human experience. Yes, all the lovely spiritual vastness, and that's all very good, but it's part of it. But the kind of the coal face of life really is in the human realm. So much of what MPA has taught me and brought me to is being a brilliant human. You know, what does it take to be a brilliant human? And when you can nurture trust with yourself and in relationship in particular, then there's a space where you can start to live from the heart, as you say, or come into that space because the environment is there that supports it. Because those kind of things, or trusting somebody, or even trusting yourself, is an act of vulnerability, right? It's you're willing to make yourself vulnerable by trusting. So so that's why over time with ourselves or with other people, it's good to do things that can help you to nurture that, because trust is built with evidence over time.
Yeah, it's not something that just happens, right? There's the interactions require, as you say, that building of trust.
Yeah, I think some people are more inclined to trust, and they may have had good experiences. I think there's a really interesting thing when trust gets broken. It's one of those strange things that, generally speaking in general terms, it's one of the easiest things to break. You know, to break trust with yourself, to break trust with another, or to have your trust broken. And it's actually quite tricky then to repair it. And I think, especially, like, again, going back to relationally, in relationships, it's like when trust has been broken, then there's a real, you know, to have the hope of it being repaired, there's a need for both people to work at it, but there needs to be an active intention and an active act and acts over time to repair that trust. And then that honors the person's, then it can be given again. And then again, it builds over time. But there is also, I mean, always there's that option where sometimes you just feel it because it's energetic. You just get a sense and a knowing. It's like it's in the vibration. You can sense that someone is trustworthy. And what builds that trustworthiness normally is because they have within themselves built evidence over time. They have honored what they say they're going to do and done it. And they do that with themselves and they do that with others. And so it becomes this, again, that the energy field or their aura, or whatever you want to call that, their person, it holds that energy so that you can feel it. And that, again, that creates that environment in which trust is much easier. And we know it on such an instinctual level. You know, it's such an instinctual thing that when we encounter a scenario or a person, you know, your gut's going to go, or it's going to go, oh, this is easy. Or it's going to go, well, I need just to check this a little bit and just be a little bit cautious because maybe there's somebody who is trustworthy in this context, but not in that context. So it's an interesting thing.
It is interesting. And the word that came to mind as you were describing that is integrity and trust, right? That you do what you say you're going to do. You follow through with your word. So integrity and trust definitely go hand in hand. And I know integrity is a big word that comes up a lot when Neil and I are talking about the Shin Dao, the way of the heart, is that it has to start with integrity. And integrity where we fail most often, I think, is with ourselves. When we're falling short of keeping word of ourselves, like, oh, I'm going to do this for myself, I'll do that. And we'll tend to put everything else first. And so we start to not even trust ourselves and it happens so subtly and in such a little way, but it becomes this insidious thing that really creeps into, as you say, our sense of trustworthiness for ourselves, and then other people can pick that up as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's sometimes I think we're able to be more integrous with other people than with ourselves, which is a bit counterintuitive with everything's a mirror of you, that kind of stuff. but in the same way that if we say we'll do something for somebody else, we'll tend to do it because but not necessarily from that deep place, but because we're supposed to, because there's more peer pressure to do it. There's more visibility in it, you know, if you don't do something for somebody else. Whereas within yourself, you can kind of, you can back out on yourself, and there's only yourself to deal with as a consequence of that. But I think that is somewhere that we, you know, again, we're so conditioned. I mean, this is something that I think most people that work with serving and helping people to become, you know, their best selves in some form, just you soon realize that you're dealing with a massive momentum of conditioning. And the conditioning that's relevant here is the conditioning to dismiss your instincts, and the okayness of backing out on yourself. And it's one of those, if you start to unpack it, it's really interesting, because it's like, even in this field, you know, field being people that are generally awake, conscious, people who will be watching this show, they'll talk the talk, and this is in no way criticizing or blaming, because everybody does it, but they'll talk the talk of, oh, yes, but underneath there's still that conditioning at play, which means we'll still back out on the things we promised ourselves. And it's all justified, it's all packaged up, but it's all part of that wave of conditioning. But to me, that's the work. That's the work in progress that all of us are. I don't care how much time you spend, you know, diving into the deepest places in you. There's always going to be an edge, and at the edge, you're going to find the stuff. And the stuff often has the flavor of where you're going to back out on yourself, where you're not going to honor things. You know, that's the nature of the edge of you. So, and we get, as we do more, we tend to become more masters of our stuff. But I don't think it ever really goes away. It's just like, it's like a video game, you know, you just go up a level and meet the monsters in a different form, you know, but get better at dealing with them. So that's what keeps it interesting, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's true. And all of that is so connected to living the way of the heart, to living from your heart. If we're not in that place of trusting ourselves, if we're not in that place of monitoring that and keep moving ourselves up a level, as you said, I like that. It's like a video game, you get to move up a level. Then we're going to be hard pressed to be in a place of self-compassion. And I think self-compassion is so super connected to living from the heart. If we can't have that compassion for ourselves, if we can't have love and kindness for ourselves, if we can't keep our word to ourselves, then really, truly, you said it, we'll do it for others, but from the superficial level of, like, you're supposed to, or you want to be liked, so you'll follow through, rather from that deep place of, this is what I want to do, and it's meaningful to do it this way. And I think that is a key point that you made, is that the place that it comes from, where does the intent originate from, is the whole difference about living from the heart or not.
Yeah, I mean, that goes right to the core of what I'm about in so much of what I do. You know, whether I'm working with, you know, clients one-to-one or in groups, or whatever the expression is of the work that I do with people, I think one of the core themes is really self-acceptance, self-compassion. And again, especially in the, you know, the awakened field, where we can get stuck on the spiritual dogma, and you know, the medicine becomes the poison, because we're now using our new spiritual rules to beat ourselves up, rather than continuing to include ourselves in the equation of kindness. So you talk about, you know, doing good stuff for other people, but not for yourself. It's that one of my big questions is, are you including yourself in the equation of kindness? I even wrote an ebook, which you can, well, I'll put a link to it. It's called Be Kind to You. It's like 100 days of self-directed kindness, because my encouragement is to start starting being kind with you first. Because any act in the name of integrity, in the name of doing what you're supposed to do, if it doesn't include you, then it isn't truly sponsored by the energy of kindness. So a classic example is, you know, you have 3 charities ask you to do good works, you know, and inside, you know, you've got maybe 1 you like, and 2, it becomes a duty. So then you act on the duty. You're not including yourself in the kindness. Is it kind to me to do all three? Well, actually, no, it's not. A, it's too much work. B, two of them I don't entirely resonate with, and it gives me less space to do the one that I am. But because you're supposed to, because it's the right thing, because I won't be a spiritual nice person, if I say no, then, you know, you end up being unkind to you, which ultimately leaks out to those others, because an honest yes and an honest no. I mean, I've got a program called Boundary Boot Camp, and so much of it is about an honest yes and an honest no, and the difficulties people have to be really straight and say,
Uh-oh, we got a little freeze there. Hang on. Let's just see what we can do.
I sense you lost me there. I saw numbers come up.
We did lose you there. Yeah. So you were saying the boot camp, honest yes, honest no, and then you kind of locked up. So we'll get you to repeat from there.
Okay, so boot camp. Yeah, I mentioned that. So it was about honest yes and honest no. So much of the fundamentals of good boundaries. I mean, boundaries are such a big issue in terms of integrity, in terms of trust, in terms of clarity, in terms of human communication. And they've got a bad rap because people respond to them like you're trying to control people. But when you come into your feelings and you honor what's right for you and what isn't right for you, your human preferences, what feels good, whatever language you want to use, then it becomes easy to give an honest yes, an honest no, or to assert a healthy boundary. So the Boundary Boot Camp really it helps people to sort of first of all assess where they are, and then do the emotional clearing, because there's so much emotional baggage around it. Then come into a place where they can identify and build their healthy boundaries, and then take it out into the world, which is where trust comes with evidence over time, right? But that what I was saying about the honest yes and the honest no is if you're giving a dishonest yes or a dishonest no, then ultimately that energy is not being kind to you. And it's not really being kind or true or in integrity with anybody else. And we justify it so much, and there's so much emotional baggage. We're worried about the resistance we might get with an honest no. All of those things that just kick off like some kind of whirlwind that we just end up going, okay, then to something that we really don't want to do. Which again circles right back into the trust, circles right back into the integrity, but ultimately is painful to ourselves. And that's where I get interested, is like, you know, is it kind to you? You know, because that is the big foundation of what I do.
And I think this is what prompted me to ask you to be on this show, Living from the Heart, because you are so much about being true to yourself, which is really where Living from the Heart starts from. And it just, when we were speaking, it resonated so much for me. This is a man who really does get what Living from the Heart is about. You're there, you're real with it. It's not just talk, it is your walk. And I love that. And I love that you're developing these processes and these programs to help other people come from that place as well.
I was going to say, yeah, I think so, because again, it's classic. Why is that my thing? Well, because I've lived so long not doing that, right? I've lived the pain. And because that's my video game of choice, I might be on the high levels, but I'm still in the game. Still, like, you know, recent times I've been on a level 35 with the the biggest demons I've got, battling my way through, falling down, cocking it up, the usual. But that's been my edge, and maybe it's a different. It seems to be at a different level, but it's the same basic thing. It really is. But it is my passion, and each time, to continue this analogy, which we're banging on about, but each time I go up a level, I feel the greater clarity in me. I feel the greater passion in me. I feel the effect it has within myself, beyond myself, all of those things. And it's like anything, it goes in waves. It's like, oh, life is good. I got my lesson. All right, let's do it. And what the heck? Whoa, roll the sleeves up. This is bad. This is really bad. What's going on? I thought I had it down. Apparently not. Oh, and then you conquer that one, and you move on and go, well, this is even better. And so it goes, because as a growth-seeking being, some part of me is always going to search out, the next expansion. And for the next expansion, you need to open an ugly door. So, so that's part of what it's just who I am, I guess, in the world this time around.
Well, there is always that discomfort, the pain that comes in that growing stage, right? I wish I could say to people, there's an easy way to grow without having to go through some discomfort, but I'm not sure that there is.
I think there is a secret trick I would like to share.
Ooh, do.
On that. And it's paradoxical, but it really is powerful. If you really sit with this, if you take nothing away from today but this one thing, then it's so powerful. And it's to practice and master the art of being comfortable with the discomfort. So if you can allow yourself to be comfortable with the discomfort, then everything gets a touch easier. I'm not saying, disclaimer, I'm not saying that there won't be massive discomfort and pain, but there's a way that it allows you to expand, to encompass the discomfort in a way that allows you to also have the wholeness of the comfort. Because when we split things into, to do that separation thing or split things into halves, then you get polarized responses, which create charge, which create attachment, which create friction, which creates greater pain and suffering. I call it unnecessary suffering. When you can say, yes, I'm in tremendous discomfort, and yes, I'm very comfortable with that, then you're holding both polarities together. And that allows a much more frictionless experience. Things tend to pass quicker, all of those things, that's what MPA does. MPA stands for non-personal awareness. It's a process that helps you not take things personally. But we were speaking just before we started. You were asking some difficult questions, well, actually very easy questions, but some classic questions about it. But it brings a neutrality, because it brings the wholeness of things to you. And so when you can hold the polarities, rather than stick to one or the other, you go from that Velcro world where everything sticks to you, and you come home at the end of the day like a great big ball of fluff, wondering why you're so tired, to things just flowing through. And it's not about trying to eradicate these difficult experiences. It's about how you relate to them. And when you improve your relationship to them, again, that brings trust back in, relationship to them, then they can pass with less friction, but without compromising on the lesson. Because the idea is, if the more I suffer, the more I grow, it's like a macho thing. I really hurt that time. I'm going to be so good after this. Whereas you can get the allowance of the enough friction to experience it, enough there to experience it and get the lesson, if we're doing it in terms of lessons. But it doesn't have to be as graunchy and painful as it is, which is one of the great gifts of MPA. It just helps people to become more porous, allow things to be experienced fully and yet not attached to on the way through, where it's like driving along the highway with your fingernails on the ground. It doesn't have to be that way.
Beautiful. And for anybody who thinks that this is like, brand new idea, I got to think about that. I've actually heard this idea of neutralizing before. You've put it together in a really easy way to do, though. That's all. Makes sense. Be comfortable in the uncomfortableness. I never would have thought of putting it into those words, but that makes good sense as a way to neutralize it.
Yeah, it's just about stepping into the wholeness of it. So you can do it with forgiveness. Forgiveness is a good example. If someone is not willing to forgive, I'll say to them, can you forgive yourself for being unwilling to forgive? What does that do? That puts both sides of the polarity into one place and allows a relaxation and an openness. What it does, in fact, is aligns them with forgiveness. Now, they're not forgiving that evil beast who did bad things, you know, at the time, but they're now including themselves in the energy of forgiveness, which ultimately then has much more potential to sort of ripple through and become an expression that may include forgiving that nasty beast who did horrible things, you know. But it doesn't matter, because the whole point ultimately, isn't it, whether you're forgiving them or forgiving this or forgiving that, isn't it just to experience forgiveness? So you can do it right now, you know, just if you're not, so anybody who's watching who's got this, I'm not going to forgive them, well, can you forgive yourself for not being able to forgive? You know, then you'll come into your own forgiveness and just see what happens. You know, as a do it, get on with your life and see what happens. You know, it's in there now, it'll do its thing. Off we go.
I love that. You know, it's no matter what anybody presents, yeah, as teachers, as spiritual guides, whatever names we give, it's like, try it on for size. You're never going to know if it's going to work unless you try it on for size. So that first step, forgive yourself for not forgiving, that's interesting how that could open the door to forgiveness. And honest to goodness, anybody who's been there will have amazing stories about how forgiveness completely changes your life and sets you free in ways that are so wonderfully liberating. Like, wow, I can get on with my life. And that self-forgiveness is a great place to start.
It is. And I did years of work which was very forgiveness focused. Interesting, when MPA came along, so quick backstory, it's like 12 years ago, it popped out of me in a coffee shop in answer to a prayer. That's the really short answer. And at the time I was working with work which was very much about going into your childhood or your history, clearing out the cellular memories, feeling all the emotions and all that kind of stuff, which is really good work. It's a big, full-on process. This simple 6-line process just helps you to come into alignment, or to offer the perspective, or to realize that fundamentally things are not personal. Or if you're focusing on a specific thing, then that specific thing is not personal. And we all kind of get that on a superficial level, but when you really realize something is not personal, then forgiveness is automatic. It's like, you know, freedom just comes along after it. It's like you just get, well, it's not personal. So there's, in a way, it's not that there's nothing to forgive, but there sort of isn't anything to forgive, because it's simply not personal. It's not about me. Because often the whole forgiveness thing is the sense of being done to in some way. Yeah. You know, and there are times that it is very relevant, very important as part of the experiential journey to go into that stuff. So I'm not negating other things, but I have noticed that so often with people, they'll use the MPA process, and from that, the forgiveness is, oh yeah, it's sort of become irrelevant. It's not the point anymore. It's just, in fact, everything is just slid off me. You know, the Velcro hooks have disappeared, you know, the loops have disappeared, and the suits just fallen to the floor. I don't have to be that person anymore. So it becomes irrelevant.
How beautiful, how beautiful, how beautiful. And look at the time. Holy crap. Where did 28 go?
What have you done with it? I'll have to forgive her. She's eating the time up.
So I would like to put your website up here on screen for people. If they want to find out about this non-personal awareness process, this very simple 6-line process that really can help you find comfort in the discomfort, to be in a place of, wow, kind of not even really needing forgiveness, because realizing there's nothing to forgive anymore when you get through that point that it's just not personal. What are they going to find on your website here, Joel?
Okay, so with regard to the MPA process, you can get it for free. If you go to that website, there'll be a little thing on the homepage that says get it for free. Take you through to a page. There's a really cool video from me, and that explains a bit about it. You can get the sheet which explains in kind of brief detail. It's 6 simple lines, and on the surface, it's very, very simple. I encourage you to go away and play with it, but I do also encourage you to take some training. So there's a program that you'll also be offered if you go and sign up there at a ridiculously reduced rate, but I want to get it out into people's hands, which is called MPA Basic Training. And it's like anything that is especially things that are simple. It's like, you know, you see Eckhart Tolle, he says, yeah, it's the power of now. And you go, oh yeah, I get that now. And off you go. Do you get the most from it? Not really, because you begin to realize that unpacking that whole thing is what gives you the experience. So I say MPA is a practice, and a philosophy. So again, if it resonates, then come in and start to engage with MPA, the process, MPA, the philosophy, and really begin to experience it for yourself. And also, any of you guys out there that are coaches, therapists, it's a great tool. It's over 18 countries around the world. It's used for all sorts of amazing things. It's happy to play with your other modalities. It's not like I'm the only way. Not at all. It's like, I'm happy to slip in with others. It's so simple in that way. But also part of why the training is so great there is because often what we do is we bring the dogma of our other modalities into MPA. And MPA is a different creature in many different ways. So it's worth doing the training to really understand how to really honor its nature, which I found loads of therapists and practitioners have said to me, by understanding those philosophies, it really enhances and helps with their other practice as well. So that's what they'll find there. And come and say hello on Facebook too. It'd be good to see you. I'm sure I'll be linked down here somewhere.
Absolutely. Vanessa Coxon says, it is a great tool and so easy to use. Just a little affirmation.
Hey, Vanessa.
In the conversation. That's fantastic. So yeah, our time is up. I can't believe how quickly this half hour went. It has been such a delight. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for bringing our awareness to the importance of trust in terms of how that plays a role in living from our heart, living with passion. And keep doing the great work that you're doing out there, Joel. And I just invite everyone to tune in again next week. We'll have another great guest. Oh, my brain just went blank. Who's here next week?
While you think about it, I'll say thank you very much for having me on. It's been great fun, and keep doing what you're doing. Loving these conversations.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We love you for being here, Joel. To our viewers, we love you for tuning in. Stay tuned again next week, Wednesday, 9 a.m. Mountain. We'll talk to you soon. Until then,